Alright, welcome back everybody to Tactics Ogre. We're going to move into the Great Hall here. This is the same Great Hall that later on we'll see a cutscene with Olivia. Basically saying, hey, your dad's sick upstairs, why don't you go take a look at him? But right now this is the setting for the last gasp of the Galgastani resistance, whatever you want to call them. As I probably mentioned before, one of the things that you have to kind of I had to remind myself, I guess, is that you have your chaos playthrough, you have your lawful playthrough, and in the chaos playthrough you have chaos pure and you have neutral. Okay, when you get to the end of those three and you reach chapter 4, which is Let Us Cling Together, the name of the game, everything has to come back together. So one of the things that I think is interesting, but I also I wouldn't say it upsets me, but it's there, you know what I mean, is that if you're playing a playthrough, pick anyone you want, neutral, chaos, blah, okay, and that character, side character, whoever that's part of the storyline dies, and they're not in chapter 4 at all, you have to know that they're not gonna be there at the end of the game. So the Duke, the Hierophant.
I wonder if you'd ever arrive, Denim.
It's over, Zabos. Throw down your weapons and surrender.
Show some respect when you speak to a High Commander, boy. Defeated or not, if we're going to hell, you're coming with us.
So, and where it gets kind of tricky is that some characters are recruitable in different playthroughs. So, for instance, just because when you choose the non-lawful, when you choose Chaos at Bama Musa, you lose what's her face gets killed. Shoot. I didn't want to call her Olivia. That's not Olivia. Shoot. Ravenous. Dame Ravenous. She, storyline-wide, dies. If you choose the opposite, then she sort of... You can choose to kill her in that battle, but if you leave her alive, she'll escape. And you'll have a chance to recruit her later on. Same thing with... Cassandra in this playthrough. She's not recruitable in the neutral playthrough because you end up fighting her. In this playthrough, the Chaos one, she is recruitable, but you have to have certain things happen, you know, for her to be recruitable. He's a little bit more complicated than the other characters, where in most cases it's just like Aerosol, where you fight her and then you want to knock her down to a certain amount of health and then she escapes, and then after that you spend a mission or two trying to defend her so she doesn't die, and then she joins your party. Kind of like that. And then, you know, I'm trying to think of their names off the top of my head. I have them both recruited. Devold and his sister. They're only, if I remember correctly, they're only recruitable through the neutral path, because you end up fighting Cassandra and killing her. But again, she's recruitable under the Chaos path, And then there's a couple characters that I didn't run into at all in the in either side of the chaos path, but are recruitable as characters if you do law. But there are plenty of characters that are not recruitable at all. Hector, he pops up in a couple different places depending on what playthrough you are. And obviously this one really helps his character to shine. The neutral was not so much. He just sort of showed up at the gate, you know, at our front gate. We kind of just like, we're the remnants of the Galga Storm army. This is our last stand. No, I cannot surrender because my knight vows won't let me do that. And then you get a much better version of him in Chaos. And then you get a pretty decent version of him in Law when we get there. So that is my so my plan here is to the plan is this. We're going to finish off the chaos path, okay? And then when we get into the fourth area, which is everything repeats itself more or less, there are certain things that open up for me that I either didn't do initially because I passed a certain mile marker that made that person no longer recruitable. And there are certain characters that can only be recruited when you're on one of the paths. So, for instance, we recruited a random healer who I think I later turned into a mage, or I'm sorry, a sage. He's only recruitable in the neutral path. You can get the sisters in pretty much any playthrough, because Olivia comes, she's recruited no matter what. I think you have to make one or two decisions to get to Stina. And then the other sister, I can't remember her name. She's probably in my party now. I just don't. Let me see. Yeah, she's in my party. She's right there, next to Casual. If you have to keep in neutral, you have to keep her alive. In the chaos path, she kind of pops up at the end of a common battle, so she's not hard to get. Is sort of what I'm getting at. There's going to be a couple battles that I'll record and show that are going to be a little different. They're going to be the same. They're going to essentially be the same battle, but because they're on a different path, they're going to appear a little bit different than originally. We'll get there, I guess. As for this particular level, I'm probably going to say this more times than anyone cares to hear, but because I went down, and this is my return to this area, even though I'm limited to the level cap at this area, which is 19, I'm packing weapons that are overpowered. So the Thunderbow, for instance, you don't get access to until you dive down into the depths. Same thing with a couple other weapons I've got rolling around in my pockets. These are things that you would not have access to because you A, wouldn't have the materials, or B, you wouldn't have the weapons, or C, wouldn't have the money to make them. So I'm kind of rolling with bigger, stronger armor than I probably should be. Some of the weapons are stronger than they should be. I shouldn't say some. A lot of the weapons I'm running with are a lot stronger than they should be, just because I have access to them now instead of when I originally should have. Gross. Well, one of the things you'll probably notice from my selection of characters, I tend to prefer humanoid characters over the monsters. There's not really nothing wrong with most of the monster characters. They have certain advantages over others. Like, for instance, if you run griffins, they are, because they don't wear armor, they're light and fast, and they're not really limited by height. Okay, so they're great if you're looking to get something done very quickly. Like, I have to race up to the top of this mountain to save somebody. They're great at that job. Okay. Now, where they're not great is they tend to not really pack that big of a punch, and some of their moves are a bit limited in terms of what they can do. Some of that has to do with the fact that they don't want you taking a flying enemy like a griffin, dropping it in the middle of an enemy pile, and just having it, you know, blow itself up, per se, i.e. use some sort of magical or physical ability that attacks everything around it. So, you know, you'll be hard pressed to find something that's an enemy that's doing, or a griffin that's doing, say, over 200 damage, I'd say. Which I guess could say for some of these guys as well, but the humans have the ability to, you know, use finishers like this and do big damage. The offsetting part of that, of course, is the fact that they have way more health than the rest of everybody else. So, you know, right now she's rocking, I mean, at 19, mind you, she's rocking 700, 800 HP, whereas a griffin would probably be rocking closer to like 12 or so. So it's not an insignificant amount of health. And then their defense is pretty okay. It's speed's really good, obviously, because they're not wearing armor, so they're not slowed down by that. So that's something to think about. I'm not really a big fan of most of the other ones. Golems seem like they could be very useful. I know I never recruited one because it just didn't seem like a waste of my time. Dragons, I like dragons. I'm not sure if it's because I had to collect them that I like them or what. I think that they're pretty good at what they do. They're decent tanks, frontline units. And then, you know, their real downside is if you have to fight a Dragoon that has the dragon, you know, anti-dragon stuff on them. What I find very odd about this game is, unless I'm misunderstanding, there is an angelic type.
I know why.
What do you mean?
He despises you. Ha! Your hands are clean, your words sweet, and your appetite's vast. Why dirty them? When a mob will do the knifeman's work for you in exchange for a few words about justice, an ideal.
What?
Ha! Sooner or later, the people will see the Duke for what he is, and come flocking to you. The plebs like a man who's unsullied. While it lasts, you can't keep the blood off those hands forever, boy.
True. Inevitably, you have to start making decisions that's going to affect life and death, and then you could also argue that because of how many battles we've fought, you know, either directly or indirectly, the blood is on Denham's hand. You know, he's involved with this war, so he can't be wholly innocent for what occurs in the war. But, war sale! It always is. I was going to continue what I was talking about, and I've completely forgotten what that is. I unfortunately do not have a chance. I do not have the ability to rewind my brain. I just want to kill you without losing my one buff I have. That's so much to ask. Game putting down those do nots, red things that negate all my buffs. Rude. You. So you can see I've taken pretty good care of the enemy forces. You know, again, I will, of course, tip my hat and whatever you want to call it to the fact that my characters are overpowered at this point, even if they are at the same level cap as they would be normally. Just access to finishers, access to weapons, access to armor. You know, even with the playing field trying to be a little bit more level, I'm on a completely different level than the enemies are now. Dead now? Now dead? No, not quite. Soon.
The men who betrayed this castle do not but wait. They wait for someone to come to their rescue, for a savior to descend upon the Isles. Their minds are simple. It is their nature. We're not like them. We can shepherd these docile lambs down the true path.
You lead them to the slaughter. How many innocents have died in your name? Are the differences between Wallister and Gulgastani worth so many lives?
If society must be built on the backs of the oppressed, best to be the oppressor, eh? Even a ditch-born bastard in Galgistan can look on you, Wallister, and know his lot could be worse. The fools see the bodies of your dead and feel grateful to be alive.
It's a wretched knight who mocks his own people.
Indeed. You essentially... Ooh, well, that was pretty good. You essentially have decided, I'd rather rule than be ruled. And if that means using the bodies of my enemies to justify the fact that your lives could be worse off if you were not part of our group.
You think to replace the Duke? Become the savior of your people? A fine irony. That...
Alright, well, that is it for this episode. We're going to cut it in just a second. When we come back, we've got more Tactics Ogre. I'm not sure where we're going next, though.
We owe you our lives. I suppose thanks are in order. But that begs the question, why? I can't recall the last time a Wallister went out of his way for us. And story was, you were the one behind the massacre at Balma Musa.
I was there, but I had no part in it. I made up my mind to leave the Resistance the moment I learned of their plans for Balma Musa. The Duke repaid me by blaming me for the massacre and placing a price on my head.
Oh.
I knew then who my true foe was. The age-old struggle between Wallister and Gulgastani is a lie. Men like the Hierophant and the Duke pit us against each other in their own struggle for power. It is they who deserve our wrath, not you and I.
And as you rise to become a leader of men, tell me, do you never worry that you become the tyrant you replace? What will you do then?
Should it come to that, I am prepared to forfeit my life.
That's youth talking. Still, you seem to believe what you say. That's good enough for me.
I hope to prove your trust well placed.
Dark news, Denham. Karitanai has fallen to the Duke.
So, the Resistance has come. I never set out to destroy them. Now here we are. If it means defeating the Duke, if it means bringing peace to Valeria, I fight them only too gladly.